because Diane is also stepping up for a late cancellation, so she's helping me out so that I'm not talking all the time. So thank you, Diane. Okay. All right, dive right into it. In the context of MIV, this is what this panel is for. We'd like to ask Mr. Lam and Mr. Chen about the role of the consular officers play in the application. Okay. So I'll start off with the question. Given the limited amount of time the consular has to evaluate a visa application, what, if any, documents should the visa applicant bring to the interview for work visa application, such as like H-1B or L-1? What kind of documents would you like to see? This is for work visa applications. Or do they just show up? You say, I'm here. Or do they bring the original approval notice, a complete copy of the petition, pay stubs, employment letter? What would you like to see and what would actually be helpful to you? And I don't know if you'd like to start.
Okay, so let me just look at this. Well, the short pithy answer to that is generally we don't want to look at documents. The whole purpose of coming is the interview, and so we want to have a discussion with the applicant about their qualifications. However, if there is going to be something that is difficult to adequately describe, perhaps something that's very technical in nature, and there's a document that will be able to paint a word picture that's going to do that better, that could be useful. If there's if you're trying to demonstrate that you have specialized knowledge, and you've got some documents, not that your employer prepared, not that the lawyer prepared, but that demonstrate that you have specialized knowledge, such as certifications, training, particularly in certain special areas. That type of documentation is going to be useful. But short of that, we don't want to see a whole lot of documentation. You, as the applicant or the applicant, should be able to answer and respond to questions. And that is, after all, the purpose of the museum, why we have spent so much money and infrastructure development in creating the process.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I second that totally. I might add that perhaps bring a copy of the petition. It should be loaded into our system as contains. But having a copy of the petition will certainly help. And in general, any supporting documents that you think would help your case. But as just Mr. Lam says, we really want to have a conversation to understand if you can speak logically and intelligently about your qualifications. The interviews don't last that long. If you bring us stacks and stacks of materials, we're not going to have time to look at it either. Okay, so that's the focus of the interview and not so much in the documents.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to point out one contrast from our conference last year when we were in Chennai, which is the busiest post around. And we asked the question then when they said, none. Don't bring us any documents. We have a minute and a half for the interview. We don't have time for documents. So I guess you have maybe a little bit more time.
But my client will insist on a complete copy of the petition. If I tell them that don't even waste your time and bring them, they're going to say, oh, no, I need them because my friend needs them. But really, they don't need them.
It's kind of like a security blanket, I think, for many of our clients.
They can bring them, but we may not have them. Okay, so it's just extra weight.
I can charge them for that. Okay, great. All right. Great, thank you. So both of you emphasized the conversation, the interview process. So for H-1B, sometimes I heard, they only ask me who's your employer, what is your job title. Sometimes they will go much deeper into the discussion of the job duties. What would be the difference? Why would some cases only get like 2 questions? Why would sometimes people get asked more questions? What kind of trigger the more in-depth discussion in that interview?
Again, this is all case by case basis. Let's use a generic example. If a client who comes up and very quickly into the interview, we established that he studied in the United States and he studied in some specialized technical field. And he speaks in very good English. At that time, my level of confidence for that officer is very high already, as far as his qualifications, because he's speaking in English for somebody who, for a Chinese applicant who studied in the US and studied something that's related to what his petition is about. What I mean by trigger is that's actually the opposite of triggering. That I'm already, headed towards a positive result for that applicant. If that applicant is stuttering and is unable to answer basic questions, we're going to have to dig a little deeper into what this is about. Is it just nervousness, or is it there's some red flags? Thank you.
I would agree with all of that. The applicant has to demonstrate that they know what they're doing. What job are they going to be doing? They can explain the credentials and the skills and the abilities that they have to do. The English, of course, they have to have English sufficient to enable them to perform the job. So the other thing I would add, if it's a repeat customer, so they're renewing the visa and nothing's changed, that's sort of the first thing that's going to be the two-question type interview rather than the more protracted interview.
Thank you. All right, Ryan?
Okay, so can you tell us what might trigger administrative processing?
For work visa.
For any petition-based employment?
Lots of things will trigger administrative processing. There's virtually no end. First and foremost, if the applicant does such a poor job at the interview that we need additional information to thoroughly adjudicate the case. So we're going to be asking for documentation. That's the first thing. They're going to be refused. It's a refusal. Refused due to 1G. It's not a holding. They are refused due to 1G. And that's a refusal that can be overcome by showing of additional or material information. So we're going to be asking for them for documents. There's other issues that will come up. Those I can't necessarily talk about other than to say there could be security issues. There could be a question about ineligibilities that we have to narrow down. And so the first thing that we're going to be doing is asking for information about why and where they were at a certain place or a certain time, or to demonstrate to us by providing maybe documentation that they weren't in the United States at a certain time, especially for people with the same names. So those are all reasons why administrative processing happens. There's no end to where or why that can happen.
And in the Chinese context, I think everybody knows that one of the main things we look at is people with backgrounds in sensitive technologies on the technology alert list, the TAO, which, by the way, I have gone on online and seen Chinese students try to reverse engineer it so that they list it and they try to share these ideas of like, these are the technologies that you don't want to be listed under because they will trigger administrative processing. I'm not going to say if that's right or wrong, but a lot of but the obviously if you're going to go work in a technical field and you have a certain type of background, we're going to have probably have to do additional processing for these types of applications.
How can a lawyer be involved in helping to dislodge an administrative processing case or find out what the status is? He's laughing. Did you notice that?
Okay, that's really easy to answer. You can't. What you can do is you can encourage your client or his employer, petitioning entity, to provide us with information. That you could do. You can encourage them to be responsive. So give us complete information. When we see gaps, when we see holes, if we ask for where things, if we ask for pay records to establish that the company, the entity has enough money we see all sorts of gaps. If we look for a corporate structure and we don't see that, if we're looking at a manager executive and we can't figure out what ongoing part of the business, our project is the manager executive classification fitting under, we need to see that. So those types of things, that's what you can do. Short of that, nothing. All the chasing loans in the world, we're not. We have just as much interest as you all do in clearing these cases. We don't want them sitting out there. We want to process them, we want to move them forward. We will do everything that we can to make that happen on our own. You writing us letters, great for the bottom line, I suppose. That's not a client letter you can charge for, but that's not going to move the case forward any faster.
Thank you.
Okay, now I think you answered this question earlier, but just want to confirm that BAHA, the Buy American, Hire American executive order, though has been written into the family 3 places under H-1Bs, under Ls, and under Bs, has not changed any of your processing, is that correct?
Yeah, from my knowledge, there's been no change. The applicants coming up to us with a petition that's been approved by USCIS. I have not seen anything in that petition that indicates BAHA.
Okay, and similarly, we talked a little earlier about the proposed changes for DS-160s, where there may be a requirement to provide information on social media handles from the last 5 years. So, as I recall, the answer to the question before was that you haven't changed any of your policies. You've been taking a look at social media for some time now and find the information to be useful. Is that correct?
Yes. It's a lovely legal question, yes, yes.
I used to be a litigator.
So, do you guys actually, I've heard, you guys like Google and applicants to see what you find out? Like in the social media, just Google, oh, you said that you're an engineer for so-and-so company, do you actually do anything like that? Or is that like a big secret that you can't?
We try to make use of all the tools that we have available to us.
You got it, okay.
I mean, if it's on Google, it's on Google, right? Anybody can look at it. Just keep in mind, we always need to balance out. So, yes, we will check, but realistically, to check every single case, I'm not sure if that's actually a reasonable time. Especially if we feel from the interview that the case is very credible already, then we may not have to check additional sources.
Thank you. And these questions may not apply to the Manila Post and the Chinese Post as much, but what kind of guidance do you have on people who may be subject to the travel ban or applicants who may have gone to travel ban countries, where they come before you?
We don't see, in Manila, we don't see this as much of an issue. There's very few people to which this will apply. We don't have any third country national applicants either. So this is not an issue for us, but I'm not sure what advice we could be providing that y'all wouldn't be able to do. You know what the operating text of the executive orders and the presidential proclamation is. It's clear on their face what they apply to, despite maybe some fun for the Ninth Circuit. But you guys could be providing just better information and echoing what was said just a moment ago. Our workload is such. We don't get into, we are the adjudicators. We don't get into providing advice to people on what they can do to, when they're ready to come before us to have their applications adjudicated. So,
Yeah, I mean, in Guangzhou, we have not seen any applicant from any of the so-called banned countries, so I can't really answer the question because it's just hypothetical.
It's not. So you're just not saying those people.
I mean, we see people from the 6 countries for other types of visas, but not for local visas. So,
Thank you.
Okay, so a question on third country national processing. And by way of contrast, the hosts in Canada used to say in the H-1B context that they did not want to see third country nationals who did not have US degrees or who hadn't had a visa approved from their home country previously. And their rationale was, we don't want to be in the position to evaluate the documents that they are presenting from another country for the first time. Recently, the laws in Canada have changed and so that they will allow third country national processing, but their preference is to, unless there's somebody who's in the United States, they will allow them to come up because it's more convenient, but they really want to know why they are coming to a post in Canada. That is, they don't want to see them avoiding going back home for their processing in general. So could you please let us know what your policies are for third country national processing in the NIV employment context?
So in Guangzhou, we actually have a fair number of third country nationals. So when it comes time to evaluating work visas, again, it's not a general answer I can give. I think what you're trying to ask is like a work visa for the first time of a third country national, right? I mean, it really depends on a case-by-case basis. You could have a situation where the third country national is actually in China attending university, and we actually see a lot more third country nationals going to China to attend various international programs. With Tsinghua, with Peking University, and previously they had a degree before they went to China, and now if they're working, or they've got a petition to do work that's related to what they're studying, I don't see why that would be a problem during the interview that we could evaluate such a person. But I could also see a situation where the person's only been resident in China for a short period of time. He's gotten a petition approved, and it is hard for us at that point to evaluate the person's qualifications.
Yeah, I'll just echo exactly what was just said. We don't have any rules against this. The ban allows people to come. At the same time, I will say we have a very small third country national group in Manila, and we have a much smaller subset who are going for work visas. So we would certainly do our best to adjudicate the case. We won't make or put into place any artificial barriers, such as needing to go to your own country. You might wonder why. We might ask why. We might be looking at why they're here, and we certainly are going to be looking at what they're going to be tentatively or allegedly doing in the United States and how that relates to what they're doing in Manila and what that does with their education or their credentials. But just the mere fact of being a third country national is not going to stop them from submitting an application, and nor is it going to stop us from adjudicating.
Thank you.
And what would be your view for, well, what is sometimes called consular shopping? That is, somebody has been to a different post, been denied, and suddenly they arrive at your post and are requesting the adjudication. Can you see people? You can see notes from the prior refusal, correct? And may that influence your decision?
Well, if we think that there's this forum shopping, that's going to be problematic for their credibility. But, and we're going to be looking at it, if that comes into play, we're going to be looking at their application more closely. But if they have a reasonable basis for showing up at our post, then it's sort of a non-question, it's a non-issue. And if we think that there is a reason, or I'm sorry, if we don't think there is a sufficient reason, then we're going to be going back to or defaulting back to what I just said a moment ago. We're going to be looking at why they're here, what their credentials are. We're going to be asking them why they're here. And then we're going to certainly be asking them, why didn't you get it in your home country? You applied for the same visa, you were refused. Those are all questions that are all fine, but it might make us ask one or two more or different questions, but it's not going to be dispositive of the case or the application.
I think, Diane, the heart of your question was, can we see, right? I think everyone knows that the systems are connected now. So, if you've applied in Manila, once, and then 6 months later you've gone to Hong Kong, and then 2 months later you've gone to Guangzhou. We can see that, and you know that's not going to be a favorable record.
Thank you. Recently, we see a lot of visa replication. We touched on that a little bit. Fortunately, people make mistakes, even though people who study in the US or H1B, but sometimes they got into little crimes. Most commonly, we see a lot of some DUIs, people who have made those mistakes. When they show up at your post, how would you treat these applicants? What kind of impact would that have on adjudications? And maybe could you address the question where there is someone who's just been accused of a crime and not yet convicted, so somebody who has a credential revocation?
We were protesting, we clapped in irons. No, how we treat them. Well, this is here again going to be very fact specific. What crime? Why were they in the United States? What was the outcome of the case? An accusation. It's quaint. We in the consular world believe that old United States idea that you're innocent until proven guilty. A mere arrest for something is not. It's not an ineligibility in any way. We're going to be asking what happened, and asking for an explanation. That's how we're going to be treating it, but it's going to be highly fact specific. So other than to have an actual case and have you all like as flies on the wall, you're not going to be able to get an answer out of me on that. But I think there was something else that I haven't actually addressed that was part of that question. Was there something about credential applications? I mentioned a little about that. Oh, that not convicted yet, but just they arrested, say. Well, okay, so one of the questions we would be looking at is, did you go and run away from the United States? Did you skip? If you've done that, well, you know, that's pretty much the end for you, because we don't believe you. You flagrantly disregard our law once. Why would we believe that you're going to do it again? So, I mean, but that's not going to be just solely in the. I don't know if we're still talking solely about work visas here, or this is mainly in the context of work visas. Okay. So, you know, then you have depending on whether it's a CIMT, of course, that's a whole different issue. But if your credibility is not there, and if especially in the context of an H1B, if we think there's information where we have reasonable belief that this is information that USCIS can have, well, we're still going to be sending the petition back.
I just want to make a comment about the drunk driving. Mm-hmm. So, you know, in China now, I don't know what it is, maybe the newfound freedom that kids can't really go to the US. You know, we do, there's a slight increase in drunk driving arrests, and, you know, that's on the record, okay? And if that's on the record, and you're applying for a visa, we're going to see it. We're going to have to send you to a panel physician for an evaluation. And in China, there are 4 panel physicians. They are certified by the CDC, Centers for Disease Control. And these panel physicians we have a good relationship with, they do their job professionally, and they'll give an assessment of whether the person is a continuing risk as far as like alcoholic is concerned. That's one aspect of drunk driving, right? Mm-hmm. And there's others, which is, you know, consular officer can still feel that you are not, you know, that you could be a risk to society if you go back. Well, I have no questions. I'll try to get to them first. I'm just going to read it, but I hope it's a bit better for me to try to paraphrase. Okay, all I-129 based visas such as L1, O1, H1B, P1, once found denied under 212A6C1 will
the DOS returned the case to USCIS for revocation. Once you guys deny it, you guys send it back for revocation, or you just deny it, right?
Sorry, I'm not sure I really understand the question.
Well, the question is, if a petition's been denied, I guess, does your post also send the case back to USCIS for revocation? I think that's the best way to do it.
I think I have to correct something. If the
Yeah.
petition's been denied, it's not coming to us.
Mhm.
Because you have to have an approved petition before it gets to us. So,
I mean, deny at the post.
right, so we're putting a 6C hit against someone? Is that what I'm getting?
let's
Okay.
say it that
If
way.
we put a 6C hit against someone, then yes, we're returning the petition, absolutely. We're refusing it, and we're returning the petition, absolutely. If we have a hard ineligibility, so any of the 212A grounds, then we're doing that and send the petition back with a little note saying what we've done.
Okay, thank you. I think you answered the questions. Okay, another question is, how would you receive an H-1B applicant who has been out of status for less than 180 days in the US? For one reason or another, that person has been out of status for 180 days, but not subject to the 3-year bar yet. I guess I'm assuming that that person is eligible for the age, but that person discloses that he's been out of status, and that came out.
Okay, so there. What? You've got me here on this one a little bit. Why are they in the United States? So they were admitted duration of status, in which case, with absent finding by DHS or Bureau of Immigration Appeals, I can't find them to be out of status. So there's my hypothetical back on that. With respect to what other types of visas, like a B visa?
I would just rephrase this. I think maybe it meant here unlawful presence, not just out of status. But how would you treat anybody who's been out of status a little bit, maybe anything, but now is back for work authorization with a valid petition?
Okay, but here again, for those of you who weren't here this morning, I'm going to reference, see what I said to lead off, that this is all my personal opinion. The first thing we're going to do, at least in Manila, is we're going to ask them why. What were you doing? And we're going to be looking for an answer that's both responsive and reasonable, that explains why.
You would expect complete honesty.
We expect complete honesty all the time. Do you really think I'm going to say, no, on Tuesdays? Tuesdays at 2:00, it's my time. We expect complete honesty. If you're going to, as you have indicated earlier, we're all human. People make mistakes. They do things they shouldn't do. And I think my CG said earlier this morning, there's big fraud and there's little fraud. There's stuff that's material, there's stuff that doesn't matter. We try to take a fair or an equitable approach to adjudicating visas when we can. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're mandated to apply the law more rigorously. For example, you need to be qualified. We can't find that you don't have some of the required qualifications. But for questions about whether or not you are unlawful, if there's a reasonable basis for you being, and I'll just accept the hypothetical, that you were there for during a period which you should not have been there, we're going to find out why, and we're going to ask you, and then we're going to decide how that goes on a case by case, fact specific basis.
Thank you. I'm trying to understand the question. I think it has to do with being out of status or an overstay of 6 months versus over a year, right? So we have to look at the law carefully, right? If you're clearly out of status for over a year, that I believe is a 92 overstay, right? Now, if you are less than a year, I'm not quite sure, but there's some other issues that we're looking at. So yeah, I'm not I can get back with the more specific.
It's the 6 months and the 3 year and the 10.
Right, so if you're a 9B2, you're bought for 10 years, and if it's the 691 is a 3-year bond. But the application of 9B1 is not as straightforward from what I remember reading the FAM. That somehow there's like a grace period. Don't quote me on this.
Well, there's that first 180 days is sort of the grace period for the 6 months.
Well, time is getting away from us. We're going to jump on to H1B if we can get to some of these questions. We will. Ryan?
Okay, so we've all just filed our H1B cap cases and anticipating a number of RFEs from USCIS on issues such as what is its specialty occupation, what are the requirements for the degree of that occupation in the OOH, the Occupational Outlook Handbook. How can it possibly be a specialty occupation if there's a level 1 wage? So if you have a H1B petition that we are able to get approved after jumping through all those hurdles, and they come to process their visa at your post, then here's another leading question. You're not going to re-adjudicate that petition, are you?
No, we're not going to re-adjudicate. We don't re-adjudicate petitions. We adjudicate applications for visas, not petitions. So if it's an H1B, we're going to be asking the questions, or trying to get to the information that we need to find that the person is either qualified for the H1B or is not. We don't know what was submitted in the uses application or the use petition. We don't see that. We don't have access to it. We have no idea what's there. Here again, let me reference what I said a couple of times. The interview is meaningful. The applicant has to demonstrate that they meet the qualifications. So if they can't, if they can't do that because of being tongue-tied, because of some cases nerves, or they're just simply unable to make the connection between what we're asking and what the qualifications are, then we're going to respond with a 221G and request further information to demonstrate that, but to demonstrate that they qualify for the visa. We're not going to re-adjudicate or re-look at or reopen the petition that that was filed with uses. We're going, if we find that they don't qualify, we're going to send that back with a cover note and saying exactly why we don't think that they qualify for, particularly in the H1B category or the L1, the individual L. We're doing the same thing, but that's not in any way, shape, or form a re-adjudication of a petition.
I mean, yeah, that's correct. We're not going to relook at what you call the RFE. The petition, if it's approved, it's in terms, approved by petition being approved by USCIS. The applicants at the window, like Martin says, we're just there to evaluate your qualifications for the visa. The consular officer is not there to say, you know what, yeah, you might be qualified, but I don't like the fact that this job only pays $50,000. I think that's way too low for an H1B. That's not the role of the consular officer. The consular officer is there just to make sure that you are qualified for what was approved in that petition.
Okay, and just to clarify, you do have access to taking a look at a PDF version of the petition and the RFE response in PINs, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Not that you don't necessarily look at it, but it should be there.
Here again, time matters. We have hundreds, thousands of people a day that we see. We don't have time. If it was a paper-based process, we would be looking at all of that. We have an interview process. We don't have time to spend on these cases where the applicant is right there in front of us and should be able to answer reasonable questions designed to measure their qualifications for the visa. So that's what they need to do.
Is there any additional level of scrutiny you have for third-party placement cases where there is a petitioner who may have an intermediary company that has a relationship with the end company, such as a Microsoft, where the beneficiary ultimately will work, do you, for an approved petition, ask for any additional documents or ask any additional questions in that sort of situation?
I mean, in China, I have to say, we see so few of these cases. I think this is probably more relevant to the India example, where there are these companies that do the outsourcing. So I can't really speak well about the Chinese example, except to tell you that it's probably not that big of a concern because we almost never see such cases. Okay,
and we talked a little earlier about the 90-day rule. So how about a scenario where a visa somebody received a B1, B2 visa, came to the United States, and then ended up having a change of status to H1B? Would that be a situation where the new 90-day rule under the FAM would apply?
If they did this within 90 days, yes. Because that change of status, if it occurs within 90 days, the presumption, now it's rebuttable. But the presumption is there that this was the intention all along, and so that they're gonna have to demonstrate pretty convincingly that it wasn't. But this is not something that can't be overcome, it just is another hurdle for them to have to cross.
Okay, and so some of us might end up having our H1B petitions denied that we filed this year, or maybe rejected because they just didn't make it into the lottery. Now the FAM has the B1 in lieu of H1B provision. I've heard consular officers say before, oh come on, you can be a B1 or you can be an H1B. There's really no such thing as a B1 in lieu of H1B. But it is in FAM. So does your post issue B1 in lieu of H1B visas?
In Guangzhou we do, but we are I have to say, we're very sparing in the use of issuing B1 in lieu of H. I think because it's not an H visa at this point, we're going to start looking more closely at the 214B issues. So if a person has been, let's say, a student, and this person has been on OPT for a really long time, and now wants to go back to continue some sort of work, let's say, right? This is just hypothetical. Couldn't get an H1B and now wants to go B1 and lieu of H. I think we're going to look more at the concern of whether this person has actually been using a visa correctly in the past. So we do issue, but we don't issue a lot of B1 and lieu of H's.
Yeah, Manila is the same way. It exists. It's an interesting visa category or type of situation in its own right. But the FAM is very clear. This is a visa by exception. This is rare. And the instances in which a person is going to qualify for this, where they are doing H work but couldn't get the H, well, okay, write your congressman. I mean, it's a flip answer, but there's a cap. Congress has in place a cap. Like it or not, that's the rule that we have to follow. And so, that's right. We're going to be looking at 214B issues, illegal work issues. In other words, are you going for the big side on this is being on H3, for example? Are you doing real training or are you doing disguised work? So those are all issues that we will look at. But this again is a very rare category or a rare type of visa.
Well, thank you. We mentioned this a few times, the nervous type of applicants, people who may not speak English very well, and also, of course, the Chinese culture, or generally the Asian culture, people are not very assertive. They don't like to talk about themselves. How do you take that into consideration? This is a question from the floor. Or should they just come out and tell you that, well, I'm very nervous, or my English is not very good, but I'm very good at making, computer go fast. So I understand, but you are going to go work in the US, right? And I understand you may have cultural,
habits of behavior, that don't allow you to talk, to boast, let's say, because people are more humble, if you will. But this is your chance to actually explain to the officer. And officers in Guangzhou at least are trained very well to be patient. But if you keep stammering and you keep this nervousness going, the officer is not going to start losing patience, and it's not going to go well. So as lawyers, I think what you want to do is encourage your clients, here's a chance to be upfront and to talk as much as possible, to sing your praises, to talk about your qualifications for the visa. So it's your chance to show that you are qualified. Good point. Anything to add, Mr. Mann?
No, we consular officers are experienced in dealing with applicants of all shapes and sizes. Locals who don't have good English, well-spoken, well-educated locals, third-country nationals. We understand people are nervous. It's a nerve-wracking experience. We are asking questions, sometimes personal, always hopefully probative, in a large space with a lot of things going on, with people in the next window. There's a cacophony of sound. That's all understood. But as was said, this is the time where, to the extent that this involves you in the earlier part, you can either tell the employer, their HR department, or the applicant themselves. They need to gather themselves for those 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, whatever that is. They need to prepare themselves for the uncomfortable, stressful environment they're going to find themselves in. And they need to treat this like it's their elevator pitch or their job application interview. They need to prepare for it. That doesn't mean memorize. That's the worst thing they can do. Okay, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask them a question they haven't thought of that's gonna throw them off. And now, if they're not prepared, but if they try to memorize, now they're really nervous. Now they have no idea what to say. So preparing is not memorizing. But they should just simply be prepared to undergo the stressful condition and to answer responsibly.
Thank you. I know you don't want to see any documents, but people still keep telling me that they need to bring pay stubs, they need to bring like a current letter of employment to the visa interview. Do you actually ask for current pay stubs or just to prove that they still work for that company?
Generally, no, we don't. Our website tells people that there's no additional documentation that's necessary. If they want to bring it, if it makes them feel better, they should by all means bring it, but we don't have the time to look through all the paperwork. If you multiply every applicant by the time necessary to look at documents, to ferret out whatever information the applicant will want us to find out, you'd rapidly find that we don't have enough hours in the day to do this. But with respect to something such as pay, first of all, we're never going to ask for one pay stub. We want to see a record of something. So if we ask for some sort of financial documentation, it's going to be over a period of time, 6 months, 12 months. Anyone can put $1 million into a bank account, take it out the next day. But my fraud prevention colleagues might very well be looking for proof of current employment, but we generally don't do that as a matter of course. We only do that if something suggests to us that there's a problem.
Let me just add one thing. It's not so much pay stubs, I guess. Here I may differ a little bit from Martin. For employment visas, if you look at L's, right? L visas where you have an operation here and you're going to be transferred to the United States. We might want to see some evidence of like continuing employment, and that could be, like he says, a record of money. It could be some pay stubs, but those are the times when I could see one exception where you might want to bring some evidence just to prove that you are still employed by this organization that's going to transfer you over to the office in the United States.
I know I'm eating into your segment, Diane, but this answers 2 questions that is from the floor about they have seen an increased level of administrative processing in L1A adjudication in China particularly. Some fraud investigation, have you seen that, or what would have caused you to doubt that there's a genuine corporate relationship to support an ally? People just give you a paper with a stamp.
No, so I think the danger for the L is that we know of situations where people, because of H-1B cap, they resort to a different category like an L. We also know from past history, at least in China, Ls have always been a little bit difficult. There have been higher instances of fraud associated with L1 visa applicants. I can't really say if I've seen an increase in Ls, but I think we're doing our due diligence to scrutinize Ls more closely. Because we have seen in past history, Ls have always proven to be a challenge to adjudicate, just based on anecdotal evidence of many cases of fraudulent Ls.
Thank you. Yeah, so
Since we haven't seen this, and since it appears to be a particularly a China-based issue, I've got no answer really to keep on this.
that's okay.
Okay, continuing on the topic of L1 adjudication, for blanket Ls, for blanket L specialized knowledge, the requirement is that it must be a professional position, and some have interpreted that to mean that the beneficiary must hold a degree. What is your viewpoint as to the evidence required to establish that an L1B, blanket L1B specialized knowledge is professional?
Yeah, well, so the individual is an individual person holding specialized knowledge. The blanket is it says you're a specialized knowledge professional, so you must have knowledge that is specialized and be a professional. Start quoting cutesy little Supreme Court justices about we know it when we see it. We do, but this is to be honest, this is a category of applicant that is ripe for abuse and is abused, quite frankly. Oftentimes we are seeing people without specialized knowledge. Some of my favorites, what's your specialized knowledge? Windows. And it gets to there. We see this on the tech field, people throwing all sorts of great acronyms and technical terms out there. The great thing about consular officers is that I may not be a rocket scientist, but I'm pretty sure that one of my officers actually has a degree in rocket science. And so I can go to that officer and say, hey, what is this to you? And he or she will look at it and say, it's a bunch of garbage, it's meaningless, it has nothing to do with rocket science. We have a lot of knowledge in the culture section, and we make use of it. And we ask people questions, and we ask them about where did they get their training, how much training do they have, how long have they been doing this, what type of work have they been doing. So we don't necessarily say that you have to have something to qualify. Your entirety of what you put forward has to make you qualified as a specialized knowledge professional. And just simply because the company says that you are, doesn't make it so. That's the simple fact there. So this is the one area of employment visas that we in Manila see a lot of the time that are abused quite significantly. So we look at them carefully. Again, we have no axe to grind here. We simply want to make sure that those people who are going as specialized knowledge professionals meet those qualifications. So we're going to ask, what's your profession? Okay, what's your post-qualification? Are you a member of any professional organization? Do you have any skills? Do you have any certificates? Are you recognized by any association or agency? Those are the kinds of things that indicate, do you hold yourself out as practicing a profession? Our lawyers, this goes back to law school and professional responsibility. What are the badges and instances of being a professional? All of us here, at least those of us who are admitted in the United States, all have to answer that question. That's the same thing that we go through perhaps in a little more lighthearted way, of course, but you do have to meet those qualifications. That's what we expect people to be able to demonstrate.
Just a quick follow-up. Is this more for a personal L, or what if people come here with an individual L that has already been adjudicated and approved by USCIS? Do you see a little bit different?
Well, yeah, then it's only the specialized knowledge part of it that they have to cross. They don't have that extra side thing. They don't have to be a specialized knowledge professional. They just have to possess specialized knowledge. So it's a slightly different thing that they have to demonstrate, but still they have to demonstrate. But here again, remember that on an individual, USCIS has already looked at the paperwork for this person. Whereas for the blanket, the sky's the limit. It could be anyone. No one has looked at anybody's paperwork. No names are there. No one has interviewed anybody. I mean, there's no knowledge of the person. So it's a completely new face. No one has looked at them before.
Extra prepared.
Well, no, but for an individual petition, USCIS has looked at paperwork that's been put forward, and they have made a judgment call already that someone qualifies in their individual capacity. So that brings down for us the inquiry that we have to make. We are only going to be looking at, does this person actually possess the specialized knowledge that they claim to possess? If USCIS has determined that it's specialized knowledge, okay, they've made that determination. We're just making sure that they essentially are the person.
You ready to do these?
Let's move on to these, yes.
Okay, we have a few minutes, but I'm dying to ask this question. I've been thinking about it for the past 3 months. How much is not enough or too low, or what is the threshold to get an E2 in Manila? I've got all kinds of people asking me that questions from Phoenix.
Are we talking about money?
Money, yes.
Here's the good news. There's no answer for this because there's no minimum bar.
I've told my clients that. They're not satisfied.
Okay. you can tell them, you don't have it on video or audio, you can tell them that there's no bar, there's no minimum. It has to be sufficient to qualify. It has to be sufficient to be more than just a living, well, I don't want to say living, just a support investment for themselves. It has to be the ongoing nature of the business. It has to be credible. It has to be real. All of those things go into the question of how much money. So if it's a lemonade stand on a small street somewhere that you have rented space from the city, that's going to be a heck of a lot different than some sort of construction business, for example, where we expect you to rent machinery or a heck of a lot of money in the bank to rent a lot of machinery. So there's no answer for this. That's going to be highly fact specific.
Thank you, that was, I'm just going to say that that's exactly what I heard from Mr. Lam, and that's what I'm going to tell my clients, fact specific. Okay, great, okay. So we see a lot of husband and wife E2 applicants, or either the husband or wife could be the applicant, and they share the money together. Initially, they don't have a lot of employees. In fact, a lot of times, just the two of them. Really, it's a family, small business. It's not just from Manila. We see a lot of them from Canada as well. When you see applicants, that is really just a family business to start an E2. Do you what goes through your mind? Kind of just look at them like, oh, I'm just gonna go through the fan and see if they hit every point, check every box, or does it make any difference that this is just a family business, husband and wife thing?
Well, of course, it makes a difference in the fact that, in a lot of ways, I guess, but the chief way, or the most important way, is first we look at the family. We follow the family. That's what we do every case. But in the case of a husband and wife business, we're going to be looking at this, I guess I would say, is this an attempt to be an EB5 without an EB5? That would be one way, I guess, of looking at it. Is there really sufficient investment to create an ongoing business, or is this just a sham? That's what we're going to be looking at. And if it's a real investment, we're talking E2 here, if it's a true investment in a business that is more than just a subsistence level investment for the husband and wife, that should be demonstrable. There should be no problem in demonstrating that to our satisfaction. We're not looking for something special or above the other FAM criteria. We follow the FAM, and so they just will have to demonstrate that the way any other applicant would have to do so.
And how do you view virtual office or home office for E2 applicants? Is that like a strike against them? Or because in Arizona, you can buy a lot of houses for not a lot of money, and so you have like a lot of spare rooms, and they all turn into a home offices. And I said, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. They say, why am I wasting money to rent something that I'm not going to use?
Okay, we're not the Internal Revenue Service, but we will look just as skeptically as the IRS does. Depends on, again, what it is. If you are running a web design business and you've got it, you can show us photos of your 5,000 square foot home in Arizona, and you've got 3 offices outfitted like offices, and you show us some other information that indicates that you've got some employee that's working there, and this is what we turn out, and here are our client list, and this is what we're, okay. If, however, you are a restaurant, that's not going to go so well. If you are, I mean, I know that this is whole home cooking thing. If you are a construction firm, if you are a tech repair operation, again, it's fact specific. It's really going to make this happen. If your business is I guess, an employment business where you are an employment agency. Okay, here again, show us how this is really a true ongoing business with an office. So that's what I would say to them.
Thank you. Diane, E1 questions?
E1, okay, so key criteria for E1 is sustained trade, and it must have been trade that existed with the United States before the application was submitted. So similarly to the questions Jared asked, there may be businesses that involve services into the United States, for example, consulting services. What sort of documentation would you expect to see for an E1 case for a consultant who decided that they needed to have their operations in the United States?
I'm going to sort of pass on this. This is not something we see in
I'm lucky enough to answer these questions because we don't get any. There's no agreement between China and the United States for these E2
I suppose you may be seeing a few of them in the dual citizenship context, and there'll be a whole panel on that tomorrow.
Do you turn them away? Do you say we don't educate E's and then just say
No, I mean if they are third country national, we will. But I have to say I just have not seen any in the last 2 years.
Sorry, I guess when I was in China, I did see some third country nationals on the E1 side. But what I saw, I was in Chengdu, what I saw was these were major companies, these were international companies. So it was fairly easy for them to demonstrate that they actually have ongoing business with the United States. This was not a mom and pop operation or some small 12-person company. This was these were large international business operations.
well, we have maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Well, I'm going to ask a couple of questions here. Okay, do you recognize investment capital in escrow until visa approval as committed funds? So that's for you, I think. The FAM does allow escrow, but we have heard our officer says we don't count that. So.
No, since the FAM allows it, we look at it. I will say that this is where you will have me as your nightmare because I will be looking at the escrow arrangement. Me will be looking at, I don't care what of my officers does that, I will be looking at the escrow arrangement. And if it's not a proper escrow arrangement, then we don't accept it. The money has to be really at risk with a condition that can't have the money go back absent just simply the visa itself. So we're gonna look really carefully at that.
This one, I guess my mom and pop E2 questions prompted this one. How much advice, like how to file a family E2? Do the husband and wife each needs to get a E2, or maybe the wife gets the E2, husband, the dependent gets an EAD, or you don't care as long as they qualify? I mean, or do you see, okay, but both husband and wife wants to get an E2 out of the same business? You see a lot of that in the Philippines?
I don't recall seeing any of it. That doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened right before I got there. We would, again, we don't have any, in the Philippines, we don't have any specialized rules. We follow what is in the CFR as law, and the rest of the family is guidance. That's what it is. It's on the CFR, it's guidance. We follow it. We don't make it up ourselves. We don't interpose our views on things. We have our own views, but we certainly don't allow them to get in the way of our adjudications, not in Russell Brown's counselor section, and certainly not in my NIV unit. And I suppose the same is true of my colleagues who took the time to be here today as well. So if a husband and wife team, if they can independently demonstrate that they qualify, then we will be issuing that visa. If that investment, if that business or that entity is sufficient to qualify, whether it's husband and wife, uncle, I mean, however many family members, again, it starts to look like a very strange, sort of what we might say as a very cute version of odd family L1. Which is also sometimes a cute way of getting around EB-5 money amounts. But we're not going to have our own rules on this.
Thank you. Well, I think our time is up, and I want to thank Mr. Lam and Mr. Chen for answering our questions and for giving us types of questions to us. Let's give them a hand of applause.